I had a bad feeling about my son and daughter-in-law, so I pretended to go on vacation. Before leaving, I hid a camera in my office. While I watched from a distance, the building janitor approached me. He grabbed my arm and murmured, "Watch at 7 p.m. That is when you will understand everything." When 7 p.m. arrived, I almost passed out from what appeared on the screen. 67 years old and carrying a company on your shoulders teaches you to read signs others miss. And that morning when I walked into my office in downtown Chicago, something was not right. The main door was locked, as always. But the lock had small new scratches, marks that were not there the previous Friday. I stopped in the hallway with the key still in my hand, looking at those fine lines on the chrome metal. They were not from normal use. They were the kind left by someone forcing an entry in a hurry. I entered slowly. The dawn light filtered through the blinds and drew lines on the mahogany desk I bought 30 years ago when Evans Logistics was just starting. Everything seemed to be in its place. My leather swivel chair, the black phone with button keys, the framed photos of my parents in front of the first cargo van we bought in 1978. But my gut was screaming. 40 years building a logistics company in the Midwest turns you into someone who notices details. And the details were wrong. The blue binder of contracts that I always left to the left of the monitor was now on the right. The pens in the holder were messy. The top drawer of my filing cabinet did not close completely, as if someone had opened it with force and shoved it back carelessly. I sat in my chair and opened the drawer calmly. The tax documents had been moved. The import folders that I always order by date had the months mixed up. June was before May, August before July. As if someone had looked for something in a hurry and put it back without thinking about the order. I took a deep breath. I checked the second drawer. The property deeds for the land in Florida and Michigan were out of the protective plastic folders. Someone had taken them out, reviewed them, and put them back carelessly. One of them had a bent corner. I never allow my important documents to be mistreated like that. I leaned back in the leather chair and looked at the ceiling. Who? Only 5 people had keys to this office. Me, my secretary, Linda, who has worked with me for 20 years, the accountant, Mr. Henderson, a 72-year-old man who is more loyal than a guard dog, the operations manager, Steve, who has been moving trucks for me for 30 years, and my son, Richard, 38 years old, with a business degree from UPenn. Married to Vanessa, a 32-year-old woman, beautiful, ambitious, always dressed as if she were going to a gala. I did not want to think about him, but the signs were there. The previous week, at Sunday dinner at my house in the suburbs, Richard had asked strange questions. "Dad, have you updated your will?" He said it while cutting a piece of steak as if it were the most normal question in the world. "Why do you ask that, son?" I replied, looking at him over my glass of sparkling water. "No, well, it is just that you are getting old, right? You should have everything in order just in case." Vanessa looked at him sideways and smiled, a small, quick smile that disappeared when she noticed I was watching her. "Just in case," what I asked. "Well, you know, life is unpredictable. It would be good if someone helped you with the company finances, someone trustworthy." "Someone like who?" "Well, I do not know, someone young, someone who understands modern business." Vanessa nodded as if she agreed with every word. "I understand my business perfectly, Richard." "Yes, Dad, I am not saying you do not, but... Well, you are already 67. It is not bad to think about delegating, about passing the torch to the new generation." The new generation. What an elegant way of saying, "Step aside, old man." I said nothing else that night. I finished my steak, drank my coffee, and went to sleep. But the words kept spinning in my head like vultures over a wounded animal. And now, sitting in my office with the moved documents in front of me, the pieces began to come together. Someone had entered here. Someone had reviewed my contracts. Someone was planning something. And that someone had access, knowledge, and motives. I got up and walked to the window. From the 12th floor of the building, I could see the entire downtown skyline. Evans Logistics trucks passed every 20 minutes, taking merchandise to New York, to Nashville, to the border. 40 years building this. 40 years waking up at 5 in the morning. 40 years solving problems, negotiating with difficult clients, surviving economic crises. And now someone wanted to take it away from me. I took out my cell phone and dialed a number. "Hello," answered a raspy voice. "Roger, this is Arthur Evans. I need to speak with you." Roger was the building janitor, a 60-year-old man, thin with a white mustache and eyes that missed nothing. He had been taking care of the building for 15 years. He knew every person who entered and left. He knew who arrived early, who left late, who brought suspicious visitors. "Tell me, Mr. Evans, how can I help you?" "Have you seen strange movements in my office?" Anyone entering after hours? There was a silence on the other end of the line. Come to the security booth, Mr. Evans. We can talk better there. I went down the elevator and walked to the building entrance. Roger was sitting in his plastic chair drinking coffee from a thermos. He saw me arrive and pointed to a folding chair next to him. I sat down. Tell me, Roger. He took a sip of coffee and looked toward the parking lot. Your son has come 3 times in the last 2 weeks, always after 6 in the afternoon, always with his wife, always going straight up to your office. I felt a cold blow to my stomach. And what do they do there? I do not know, but they stay for about an hour, sometimes more, and 2 days ago I saw that a man I do not know went up with them. He was carrying a leather briefcase, wearing a tie like a lawyer or a notary. The world stopped for a second. A notary. Are you sure? Yes, Mr. Evans. I never forget a face, and that man is not from here. I had never seen him. I got up from the chair. My legs were trembling, but I maintained my composure. Thank you, Roger. Wait, Mr. Evans. I stopped. If you want to know what is happening, come tonight at 7 o'clock sharp. That is the time they always arrive. I will make sure you can see everything. I looked him in the eyes. They were tired eyes, but honest. I will see you at 7. I went back up to my office and locked the door. I sat in front of the computer and started thinking. If my son was plotting something, I needed proof. I could not confront him without evidence. He would deny everything. Vanessa would back him up, and I would look like a paranoid old man who distrusts his own family. I needed to see what was happening. I needed a camera. I opened my laptop and searched the internet. I found an electronics store on Main Street that sold small security cameras the size of a lighter. They could be hidden anywhere and transmitted live video to a cell phone or computer. I left the office, drove to the store, bought the camera, and returned. I hid it behind the accounting books on the bookshelf facing my desk. From that angle, the camera could record everything that happened in the office. I connected it to the building Wi-Fi and configured the application on my cell phone. Perfect. Now came the hard part. I had to make them believe I was leaving. I called Richard. Hello, Dad. Son, I am calling to tell you that I am going to Florida for a few days. I need to rest. These last months have been heavy. To Florida. When are you leaving? Tomorrow morning. I am flying out. I rented a house on the beach. I will be away for about a week. I heard a murmur on the other side. Vanessa speaking to him in a low voice. Ah, that is great, Dad. You need to rest. You are not up for so much work anymore. You are not up for so much work anymore. Every word was a knife. Yes, son. I am not up for so much work anymore. That is why I am going to rest. Perfect. Enjoy, Dad. And do not worry about anything. I will take care of the company. Of course. You take care of everything. I hung up the phone and breathed deeply. The next day I left the building with a suitcase in my hand. Roger saw me pass and gave me a discreet nod. I returned the gesture. I got into my truck and drove to a hotel downtown 10 blocks from the building. I rented a room on the 8th floor with a view of my office. From there I could see the windows of the 12th floor. I settled into the room. I opened my laptop. I connected the camera application. The image appeared on the screen. My empty office, the desk, the chairs, the filing cabinets, everything in silence. I waited. The hours passed slowly. 3 in the afternoon, 4, 5, 6. At 6:30 I went down to the hotel lobby and walked to my office building. Roger saw me arrive and opened a side door that led to the service stairs. Go up to the 11th floor, Mr. Evans. There is a window that looks directly into your office. From there you can see everything. I went up the stairs. My heart was beating fast. I reached the 11th floor and walked down the empty hallway to the window Roger had indicated. From there I could perfectly see the windows of my office on the floor above. I took out my cell phone. I opened the camera app. 6:55 p.m. My hands were sweating. 6:58 p.m. I heard the elevator opening on the floor above. Footsteps. Voices. 7 p.m. The door to my office opened, and what I saw on my cell phone screen froze my blood. Richard entered first. Then Vanessa. And behind them a man in a gray suit with a leather briefcase. A notary or crooked lawyer. They sat in front of my desk. Richard opened the drawer where I keep the property deeds. He took them out. He put them on the desk. The lawyer opened his briefcase and took out several documents. He spread them on the table. Vanessa spoke. I could not hear what she was saying, but her gestures were clear. She pointed to the documents. She pointed to the contracts. She smiled. Richard nodded. The lawyer took out a pen, and then I saw something that broke my soul. Richard took one of the documents. He signed it, with my name, with my signature, forged. The lawyer checked the signature. He nodded. He stamped the document. Vanessa clapped. The three hugged. I stood paralyzed. My son, my own son. He was forging my signature. He was selling my company behind my back. My legs trembled. I leaned against the wall. The cell phone almost fell from my hands, but I did not look away from the screen, because I needed to see everything. I needed to know exactly what they were doing. The lawyer took out more documents. He put them in front of Richard. And then I heard something, not through the camera, but through the window. Vanessa was talking loudly, so loudly that her voice went through the glass. When we send him to the lake house, the process begins. When we send him to the lake house, when no, yes, when. As if it were already decided. As if I were a hindrance that had to be removed from the path. Richard laughed. A laugh I had never heard from him. Cold. Calculating. In 2 weeks, this is ours. The lawyer closed his briefcase. The three left the office. I heard their footsteps moving away down the hall. The elevator opening. Closing. Silence. I stayed there in front of the window, holding my cell phone, watching the recording over and over again. My son. My blood. The boy I carried in my arms. The boy I took to play football on Sundays. The boy whose college tuition I paid. The boy I trained to one day take my place in the company. That boy now wanted to bury me alive. I went down the stairs slowly. Roger was waiting for me in the booth. "Did you see it, Mr. Evans?" I nodded. I could not speak. My throat had closed up. "I am very sorry," Roger said, "but it was important that you knew." "Thank you," I managed to say. I left the building and walked down Main Street aimlessly. The lights of the cars passed by me. People walked fast, hurried, living their lives. And I was there in the middle of it all, with a broken heart and a burning mind. Because one thing was certain: if they wanted to play dirty, I was going to teach them how the game is really played. 40 years in business had taught me something Richard never learned. In this world, the youngest does not win. The one who wins is the one who knows how to wait, the one who plans, the one who strikes when the enemy lowers his guard. And I was going to strike hard. That night I did not sleep. I stayed in the hotel room, sitting on the edge of the bed, watching the recording over and over on my laptop. Every gesture of Richard, every smile of Vanessa, every movement of the lawyer, the forged signature, the property deeds for the land in Florida and Michigan spread out on my desk as if they were poker cards. Vanessa's words resonated in my head like church bells. When we send him to the lake house, the process begins. When? No. Yes. When? As if I were an old piece of furniture that had to be taken out of the house to make space. As if my 67 years of life, 40 of them building Evans Logistics, were worth nothing. I got up from the bed and walked to the window. From the 8th floor of the hotel, I could see the lights of Chicago extending like a golden sea to the horizon. Millions of people sleeping peacefully. Millions of families under the same roof, trusting each other. And me here hiding in a hotel, spying on my own son. What irony. I spent my whole life teaching him values, respect, honesty, hard work. I taught him that a man builds his destiny with his hands, not with lies. That a man's word is worth more than any signed contract. And what did he do with those lessons? He threw them in the trash, just like he was doing with me. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. The pain was real, physical, as if someone had put a hand in my chest and was squeezing my heart. But along with the pain, something else was growing. Something cold, something hard. Rage. Not the explosive rage that makes you scream and break things. The other kind. The rage that makes you think, plan, act with precision. I sat in front of the laptop and opened a new document. I started writing everything I knew. Facts. Richard and Vanessa entered my office 3 times in the last 2 weeks. They brought a lawyer. Richard forged my signature on legal documents. They are planning to take control of the company. The plan includes sending me to the lake house to start the process. They mentioned a deadline. 2 weeks. Questions. What documents did Richard sign? Who is the accomplice lawyer? Who are they planning to sell the company to? How do they plan to legally justify the transfer? What does sending him to the lake house mean? That last question gave me chills. It could not be literal. Or could it? Were they planning to do something to me? No. I knew Richard. He was ambitious, treacherous, a liar, but he was not that. Or was he? Did I really know my son, or had I been living with a stranger all these years? I closed the laptop and took my cell phone. I searched my contacts until I found the name I needed. Attorney George Miller, my lawyer, one of the best corporate lawyers in the state. 62 years old, silver hair, Italian suits, a mind sharp as a razor. I had known him for 30 years. He had handled all the important contracts for Evans Logistics. He knew every detail of the legal structure of my company. If anyone could help me, it was him. But it was 2 in the morning. I could not call him now. I would have to wait until dawn. I lay in bed, but I could not close my eyes. Every time I tried, I saw Richard's face signing those documents, Vanessa's face clapping, the lawyer's face stamping the betrayal. At 6 in the morning, I got up, showered, and dressed in one of my gray suits. If I was going to face this, I would do it like the businessman I am, not like a victim. At 8 o'clock sharp, I called George. "Hello," he answered with his deep and deliberate voice. "George, this is Arthur Evans. I need to see you urgently." There was a pause. "What happened, Arthur? I cannot talk about it on the phone. We can meet at your office." "Sure. What time?" "Can you do it now?" Another pause. "Give me an hour. I will see you at 9. I will be there." I hung up. I left the hotel and walked 3 blocks to a diner I have known for 20 years. I ordered a black coffee and some eggs. I was not hungry, but I needed to eat something. My stomach burned from pure tension. At 10 to 9, I arrived at the building where George has his office. 15th floor office with a view of the river. His secretary recognized me immediately. "Mr. Evans, please go in. The attorney is waiting for you." I entered the office. George was sitting behind his dark wood desk, reading some documents. He looked up and motioned for me to sit. "You look terrible, Arthur." "I feel worse. What happened?" I took out my cell phone, opened the camera app, and showed him the recording. George put on his glasses and watched the screen in silence. 2 minutes. 3. 5. When it finished, he took off his glasses and leaned back in his chair. "This is fraud. Forgery of documents. And if what they plan involves declaring you mentally incapacitated to take control of your assets, it is also elder financial abuse." "How serious is it?" "Very serious. We are talking about federal crimes. They could go to prison." I felt a knot in my stomach. Prison. My son. In prison. George looked at me fixedly. "But before we get to that, we need to understand exactly what they are planning. I need to see the documents he signed. I need to know who that lawyer is. And I need to know who they are selling the company to." "How do we find that out?" "By letting them continue." I looked at him without understanding. "What?" "If you stop them now, they will deny everything. They will say you were confused, that you misinterpreted what you saw, that the recording shows nothing illegal, and without stronger evidence, it will be your word against theirs. But I have the recording. The recording shows that they entered your office and reviewed documents. That is not illegal. He has a key. Technically, he has the right to be there. The only thing we could prove is that he signed something, but without seeing what he signed, we cannot accuse him of forgery. So, what do I do?" George leaned forward. "You let them go ahead with their plan. But you get ahead. You block everything they can use against you. You secure your company. And when they make their final move, you catch them red-handed, with irrefutable proof." "How?" "First, we are going to authenticate your signature at a legitimate notary public. We are going to put on record that any document signed after today without your physical presence is false." "Can that be done?" "Not only can it be done, it must be done. It is a legal protection that any businessman with your level of assets should have. We are going to do it today." "What else?" "Second, we are going to transfer the company to a trust. A legal trust where you are the sole beneficiary. That way, even if they forge your signature on sales documents, those documents will have no validity because the company will no longer be in your name. It will be in the trust. And won't that raise suspicions? Outwardly, nothing will change. The company will continue operating the same. The employees will notice nothing. But legally, it will be armored. No one will be able to sell it, transfer it, or mortgage it without your physical and personal authorization before a notary." "How long does it take to do that?" "If we start today, 1 week. They mentioned 2 weeks. Perfect. That gives us time. And then you wait." You let them believe their plan is working, and when they make their final move, when they present the forged documents, when they try to close the sale, that is when you stop them. With all the evidence, before the authorities, before the district attorney, before a judge. I remained silent, processing everything. It was a solid plan, cold, calculated, exactly what I needed. Is there anything else? I said. What? Vanessa said something in the recording. When we send him to the lake house, the process begins. What does that mean? George frowned. Do you have property by the lake? A house in Michigan. I bought it 10 years ago for vacations. Is it in your name? Yes. Does Richard have access? He has keys. But the deed is in my name. George stood thinking. It is possible they are planning to make you sign a power of attorney while you are there. A remote place, far from your circle of trust, far from your lawyers. They take you, they make you sign documents, and when you return to Chicago, you are no longer the owner of anything. My stomach churned. And if I refuse to sign, then they will look for another way. They could forge more documents. They could try to declare you incapacitated. They could invent that you have mental health problems. With the right doctors and the right documents, it is possible. Is it that easy to take everything from someone? If the victim does not protect themselves, yes. That is why it is important that we act fast. I got up from the chair. Let's start today. George nodded. Give me 2 hours to prepare the documents. At 11, I will see you at Notary Public number 7. It is a notary I know well. The notary is completely trustworthy. I left his office and went down to the street. The morning sun hit the asphalt hard. The city kept moving. Cars, trucks, people walking fast with their cell phones in hand, all living their normal lives. And I was here in the middle of a war I never asked for, walking aimlessly for a few minutes. I needed to clear my mind. I needed to think. How had I reached this point? At what moment did I lose my son? Was it when I put him in business school? Was it when he met Vanessa? Was it when I started giving him responsibilities in the company? Or was it before? Was it when his mother died 10 years ago and I locked myself in work so as not to face the pain? Was it when I stopped asking him how he was and only asked him how the company numbers were? Was it when I turned him into an employee and stopped treating him like my son? The questions burned me, but the answers did not matter. What mattered was the present. And in the present, Richard had chosen his path and I had to choose mine. At 11 o'clock sharp, I arrived at Notary Public number 7. George was already there with a folder full of documents. The notary was a 50-year-old man, thin with glasses and a brown suit. Mr. Evans, it is a pleasure, he told me, extending his hand. The pleasure is mine. We sat in his private office. George spread the documents on the desk. Mr. Evans, these are signature authentication documents. What we are going to do is simple. You are going to sign these papers in my presence, in the presence of the notary, and in the presence of 2 witnesses. We are going to record your official signature, and we are going to declare that any document signed outside of this procedure without your verified physical presence will be considered false. Perfect. I signed every document. The notary stamped every page. The witnesses signed too. Everything was recorded. Ready, said the notary. From this moment on, if someone presents documents with your signature and you were not present to sign them, those documents are legally void. And if they already signed something with my forged signature, those documents will also be void, and the person who presented them will face criminal charges. I nodded. First step completed. Now for the trust, said George. We spent the next 4 hours at the notary preparing the documents to transfer Evans Logistics to a private trust. It was a complex process, but necessary. At the end of the day, the company was protected, legally armored. No one could touch it without my physical and personal authorization. I left the notary at 5 in the afternoon, exhausted but relieved. George walked with me to the parking lot. What is next? I asked him. Now you wait. Keep the recorder active in your office. Let them move. Let them believe everything is going according to their plan. And when they make their final play, you stop them. And if they try something before, they won't. They mentioned 2 weeks. That means they are waiting for the right moment. They are probably waiting for the buyer to arrive, for the money to come together, for everything to be ready to close the operation. And who can be the buyer? That is what you have to find out. Do you have competitors who have shown interest in buying your company? I thought for a moment. Yes, Pacific Freight, a company from out of state. They have been trying to expand into the Midwest for years. They have made me offers before, but I have always rejected them. Do you know the owner? Yes, his name is Howard Stone, an ambitious guy without scruples. Do you think he would be willing to participate in something like this? If it suits him, yes. Then it is probable that he is the buyer. Investigate discreetly without raising suspicions. How? You have contacts in the industry, don't you? Yes. Use them. Ask if anyone has heard rumors that 𝒐𝒊𝒄𝒆𝒔 is about to make a big acquisition. If the answer is yes, then we will know the plan is underway. I nodded. Anything else? Yes. Keep your distance from Richard. Do not confront him. Do not show suspicions. Act normal as if nothing were happening. That is going to be difficult, I know, but it is necessary. If he feels you discovered him, he will change strategy and we will lose the opportunity to catch him. Understood? George put a hand on my shoulder. I know this is difficult, Arthur, but you are doing the right thing. What Richard is doing is not only illegal, it is a betrayal, and betrayals are not forgiven. They are punished. I stayed looking George in the eyes. He is my son. I know. If I go ahead with this, I will lose my only son. You already lost him, Arthur. A long time ago. Now you are just protecting what is yours. The words fell on me like stones, but they were true. Thank you, George. That is what we are here for. I will call you tomorrow to review how things are going. We said goodbye. I got into my truck and drove back to the hotel. That night before sleeping, I watched the recording again, and this time, instead of pain, I felt something different. Clarity. Determination. If Richard wanted to play, I was going to play, but with my rules. And in this game I had 40 years of experience while he was just learning. Bad luck for him. The following days were a mix of surveillance and preparation. I kept the camera active in my office, checking the recording every night. Richard returned 2 more times. Always with Vanessa. Always reviewing documents. Always speaking in a low voice, like conspirators. One night I heard them mention a figure. $2 million. The sale price. My company. 40 years of work. Valued at $2 million. I felt like laughing. Evans Logistics was worth triple that. But they were so desperate to close the deal that they were giving the company away. Idiots. Meanwhile, I did my own investigations. I called Manuel, an old friend who has a courier company in Detroit. He knows everyone in the Transport Guild. Hey, Manuel, have you heard anything about 𝒐𝒊𝒄𝒆𝒔? What do you want to know? If they are about to make any big acquisition. There was a pause. Well, yes. I heard Howard Stone is looking to enter the Chicago market. They say he already has a closed deal, that he is going to buy a big company. My stomach turned. Do you know which company? They did not tell me. But by the size of the operation, it can only be one of 3. And one of those is you. When does the deal close? I do not know, but soon. In the next few weeks, from what I heard. Thank you, Manuel. Is everything okay, Arthur? Yes, everything is okay. Just curiosity. I hung up. Confirmed. Howard Stone was the buyer. Richard was selling him my company below the real price, and he was probably keeping a commission. How convenient. 1 week after my meeting with George, I received a call from Richard. Dad, are you back from Florida? Yes, son, I arrived yesterday. That is good. Hey, I need to speak with you. Can we have lunch tomorrow? My heart skipped a beat. Here it came. Sure, son, where? At the steakhouse at 2. I will be there. I hung up. I called George immediately. He wants to speak with me. Perfect. That means he is ready to make his move. Go to the lunch, listen to what he has to say. But do not sign anything under any circumstances. And if he insists, tell him you need to think about it, that you need to review the papers with your lawyer. Buy time and record the conversation. Record. Yes, with your cell phone. Activate the voice recorder and leave it in your pocket. We need evidence of what he is going to propose to you. Understood. The next day I arrived at the steakhouse at 2 o'clock sharp. Richard was already there, sitting at a table by the window. Alone. Without Vanessa. I approached. Hi, son. Hi, Dad. Sit down. I sat in front of him. Before doing so, I took out my cell phone, activated the voice recorder, and left it in the pocket of my jacket. How was Florida? He asked. Good, relaxing. You look better, more rested. Thank you. The waiter arrived. We ordered food. We waited for him to leave. Richard took a sip of water and looked me straight in the eyes. Dad, I need to speak with you about something important. Tell me. I have been thinking a lot about the future of the company, and I think the time has come to make some changes. What kind of changes? Structural changes of direction of ownership. There it was, explain yourself. Dad, you have worked all your life. You deserve to rest to enjoy what you built. But the company needs new blood. It needs someone to take it to the next level. And that someone is you. Not necessarily. I stayed silent. Dad, I have received an offer, a very good offer from a company that wants to buy Evans Logistics. Who? Pacific Freight. There it was. Confirmed. Howard Stone. Yes. How much is he offering? $2 million. I tried to keep my face neutral. That is less than the company is worth. I know, but it is a fair offer considering the current state of the market. Lie. The transport market was in one of its best moments. And why didn't you consult me before receiving that offer? Richard shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Because I knew you would say no. Because you are stubborn, Dad. Because you do not want to let go of the company, even though you no longer have the energy to manage it. Every word was an insult. But I kept calm. And what happens with the employees? With the families that depend on Evans Logistics? Howard promised to keep everyone. No one loses their job. Another lie. I knew Howard. The first thing he would do would be to fire 50% of the staff to cut costs. And what do you gain from this? Richard blinked. What do you gain from this sale? Nothing, Dad. I just want the best for you. Liar. Richard, if I sell the company, where does the money go? Well, to you. And then, well, someday when you are no longer here, it will pass to me. And what if I do not want to sell? Richard's face changed. The kind mask cracked for a second, and I saw what was underneath. Coldness. Dad, I am not asking for your permission. I am telling you what is going to happen. The air froze between us. How was that? I already signed the papers. The sale is done. I just need you to sign the final transfer. I felt the floor moving beneath me. But I maintained my composure. You signed in my name. I signed as the legal representative of the company. You are not the legal representative. I have power of attorney. I have not given you any power of attorney. Richard took an envelope from his briefcase and put it on the table. Yes, you did. 2 weeks ago, when you were in Florida, you sent it by mail. I opened the envelope. Inside was a notarized document with my forged signature, granting Richard total power over my assets. I stared at him. This is fake. It is not fake. It is certified by a notary. Which notary? That does not matter. It does matter. Because that notary is going to end up in jail along with you. Richard laughed. A dry laugh. Without humor. You are not going to do anything, Dad. Because if you try to fight this, I am going to declare you incapacitated. I am going to bring doctors to certify that you are no longer right in the head, that you suffer from dementia, that you cannot handle your own affairs. I remained silent, processing, assimilating. My son was threatening me, openly, shamelessly. This is what is going to happen, continued Richard. You are going to sign the final transfer. You are going to accept the money from the sale. And you are going to retire quietly to your house in Michigan. You are going to live comfortably the rest of your life. And no one has to get hurt. And if I refuse, then things get ugly. And believe me, Dad, you do not want things to get ugly. I looked him in the eyes, and I saw a stranger. Who are you? Richard got up from the chair. I am the future, and you are the past. The faster you accept it, the better for everyone. He left $100 on the table to pay for the food, and he left. I stayed sitting there, alone, with the envelope in my hands. The cell phone kept recording in my pocket. Everything, every word, every threat, every confession. I took out the cell phone and stopped the recording. I saved it. I backed it up to the cloud, and I called George. He already made his move. What happened? I told him everything. When I finished, George whistled low. This is better than I expected. Better. He just confessed everything to you. He just threatened you. And you have it recorded. This is enough to sue him criminally. What is next? Now we wait. He thinks he won. That he scared you. That you are going to sign. But you are not going to do anything. And when he presents the fake documents to close the sale, that is when we catch him. When will that be? Soon. Very soon. If he already signed the preliminary papers, the closing must be days away. And meanwhile, You prepare yourself. Because when this explodes, it is going to explode hard. I hung up. I stayed sitting in the restaurant looking out the window. People walked by. Cars. Life. And me here in the center of a storm. But this time I controlled the wind. The next 3 days were the longest of my life. Every hour felt like an eternity. Every minute dragging like a funeral procession. I stayed at the hotel watching the camera in my office, waiting for Richard's next movement. George called me twice a day to check progress. Anything new? Nothing yet. Have patience. They are waiting for the perfect moment. But patience was never my strength. 40 years building a business taught me to act, not to wait. However, this time I had no choice. I had to let Richard sink himself. The afternoon of the 3rd day, something changed. I was checking the camera when I saw Richard enter my office. This time he did not come alone. He came with Vanessa, with the accomplice lawyer, and with a man I recognized immediately. Howard Stone, the owner of Pacific Freight. A 50-year-old man, fat with a thick mustache and gold rings on both hands. The kind of man who smells of dirty money from afar. They sat around my desk, as if it were theirs. The lawyer extended documents on the table. Howard reviewed them carefully. Richard pointed to specific parts, explaining something I could not hear from the camera. Vanessa smiled, that smile that gave me nausea. My cell phone vibrated. A message from George. "Are you seeing this?" I had given him access to the live stream of the camera. "Yes," I replied. "That is Howard Stone, right?" "Yes." "Perfect, they are closing the deal. This is what we needed. What do I do?" "Nothing. Just watch. And record everything." I left the cell phone aside and concentrated on my laptop screen. Howard took a pen from his jacket. He signed several documents. The lawyer stamped every page. Richard signed after. With my name. With my forged signature. Again and again and again. Every signature was a blow to the stomach, but I forced myself to keep watching. I needed to see everything. I needed to know exactly what they were doing. After signing, Howard took a thick envelope from his briefcase. He opened it. Inside were bundles of bills. He put them on the desk. Richard counted them quickly. He nodded. Howard extended his hand. They shook hands. And just like that, in less than 20 minutes, my company had been sold. 40 years of work, sold as if they were a used car. I felt like I was running out of air. I got up from the chair and walked to the hotel window. I opened the window wide and breathed deep. The fresh afternoon air hit my face. I closed my eyes. I counted to 10. I breathed again. And when I opened my eyes, the rage had turned into something different. Into determination. Into absolute clarity. Now I had everything I needed. I called George. I have it all recorded. Perfect. Download the video. Save it in 3 different places. Cloud, hard drive, USB drive. We cannot risk losing it. Understood. Now comes the hard part. What part? Tomorrow they are going to present the signed documents before the corresponding authorities to make the property transfer official. They are going to go to the recorder of deeds. They are going to register the sale. And at that moment, you are going to appear. Appear. Yes, with all the documents we prepared. With the recordings. With the proofs of forgery. And with a criminal complaint. A complaint. Yes, Arthur. This is no longer a civil matter. It is criminal. Fraud. Forgery of documents. Asset theft. Your son is going to face criminal charges. The words fell on me like stones. Criminal charges. My son. George, I just want to recover my company. I know. But the law does not work like that. If you present the evidence, the authorities have the obligation to act. You cannot report only the part that suits you. It is all or nothing. Does that mean Richard is going to go to prison? Possibly. Depends on the judge. Depends on the prosecution. But yes, it is a real possibility. I remained silent. Processing. Arthur, I know this is difficult, but you have to understand something. What Richard did is not a mistake. It is not a bad decision. It is a crime. A serious crime. And if you let it pass, you do not just lose your company. You are telling him that he can do whatever he wants without consequences. He is my son, and he chose to betray you. He made that decision. Not you. I breathed deep. What do I have to do? Tomorrow at 9 in the morning, show up at my office. We are going to go together to the district attorney to file the complaint. Then we go to the recorder's office. And when Richard arrives there with his fake documents, the police will be waiting for him. And Howard Stone. Him too. If he participated in the purchase knowing that the documents were fake, he is an accomplice. He faces the same charges. And the lawyer, that one is going to lose his license and probably face charges too. Notarizing fake documents is a serious offense. And Vanessa, if she participated actively in the fraud, she also faces consequences. I felt a huge weight on my shoulders. George, this is going to destroy my family. Your family is already destroyed, Arthur. Richard took care of that. He was right. I knew it, but it hurt to hear it. I see you tomorrow at 9. I will be there. I hung up. I sat on the edge of the bed. The hotel room suddenly felt small, suffocating. I got up and went out to walk. I went down to the street and walked aimlessly through downtown Chicago. The lights of the businesses illuminated the sidewalks. Street vendors shouted their products: hot dogs, pizza, pretzels. Life followed its normal course, and I here in the middle of a nightmare. I reached the plaza. It was full of people, tourists, families, children running. I sat on a bench in front of the fountain, and for the first time in 3 days, I let the emotions catch up with me. I did not cry. I did not scream, but I felt the full weight of what I was about to do. Tomorrow my son was going to be arrested because of me. Well, no, because of him. He made the decisions. He forged the documents. He sold my company behind my back. I was just protecting what was mine. But still, he was my son. The boy I carried in my arms when he was born. The boy I taught to ride a bicycle. The boy who cried in my arms when his mother died. At what moment did that boy become this? At what moment did I lose the ability to see him? At what moment did he stop being my son and become my enemy? The questions had no answer. Or maybe yes. Maybe the answer was simple. I never lost him. Simply, I never had him. Maybe he was always like this. Maybe I was just seeing him clearly for the first time. I stayed sitting on that bench until it got dark, until the streetlights turned on, until the plaza emptied. And then I got up. I walked back to the hotel. I went up to my room. I showered. I went to bed. And for the first time in days, I slept. It was not a peaceful sleep, but it was enough. At 8 in the morning the next day, I got up. I dressed in my best gray suit, and I left the hotel. I drove to George's office. He was already waiting for me at the building entrance, with a black leather briefcase in his hand. "Good morning, Arthur." "Good morning. Ready?" I nodded. "Let's go." We got into his car, a black BMW, and we drove toward the district attorney's office. The traffic was heavy. Chicago at rush hour. But eventually we arrived. George parked, and we walked toward the entrance. We passed security. We went up to the 3rd floor. We entered an office where a secretary received us. "Good morning. Are we here to file a complaint?" "Of course." "Sit down, please. The DA will attend to you in a moment." We sat on some uncomfortable plastic chairs. We waited 15 minutes. Finally, a man of about 45 with a white shirt and blue tie came out of an office. "Attorney Miller." "Yes, sir. Come in, please." We entered his office. We sat in front of his desk. "How can I help you?" George opened his briefcase and took out all the documents, the recordings, the proofs of signature forgery, the trust documents, the notary authentications, the hidden camera video. He put everything on the desk. "Sir, we are here to report asset fraud and forgery of documents. My client, Mr. Arthur Evans, is the owner of Evans Logistics, a logistics company valued at more than $6 million. His son, Richard Evans, forged his signature on multiple documents to sell the company without his consent to a third party, Mr. Howard Stone, owner of Pacific Freight." The DA opened his eyes with surprise. "Do you have proof?" "All you need." George showed him the video. The DA watched it completely in silence. When it finished, he leaned back in his chair. "This is serious. We know. Where is the son now? We believe that in the next few hours he will present himself at the Recorder of Deeds to register the sale. That is where we plan to intercept him." The DA nodded. "I am going to issue an immediate arrest warrant, and I am going to send agents to the Recorder's office. If he shows up there, they will detain him." "Perfect. Mr. Evans, are you sure you want to proceed with this? It is your son." I looked him straight in the eyes. "I am sure." The DA nodded. Understood. I am going to open the investigation file immediately. I ask you to leave all the evidence here and to be available to testify when necessary. Of course. We left the DA's office an hour later. Everything was in motion. There was no turning back. Now what? I asked George while we walked to his car. Now we go to the recorder's office. And we wait. We drove to the county recorder's building, a gray 3-story building in the city center. We arrived at 11 in the morning. We parked on the street with a view of the main entrance. How long are we going to wait? I asked. The time that is necessary. We waited an hour. 2. At 1 in the afternoon, George went out to buy sandwiches and sodas. We ate in the car. We kept waiting. At 2:30, my cell phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. Dad, I know what you are doing. Do not make a mistake you are going to regret. It was Richard. How did he know? I showed the message to George. Someone warned him. Maybe the lawyer. Maybe someone at the registry. It does not matter. Let him know. That does not change anything. Do you think he will come? I do not know. But if he does not come today, he will come tomorrow. Or the day after. Eventually he has to register the sale. Without that registration, the transfer is not legal. Another message arrived. We can fix this. Let's talk you and me without lawyers. I did not respond. George looked at me. Do not answer him. Do not give him information. Let him get desperate. I put the cell phone away. We kept waiting. At 3:15, a silver car parked in front of the building. Richard got out of the driver's seat. Vanessa got out of the passenger seat. The lawyer got out of the back seat. The 3 walked toward the building entrance. There they are, I said. George dialed a number on his cell phone. Sir, they arrived. They are entering the building. He hung up. The agents are already inside, waiting. My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my temples. Richard, Vanessa, and the lawyer entered the building. 5 minutes passed. 10, 15. And then the doors of the registry burst open. 2 police officers came out, with Richard in handcuffs, with the lawyer in handcuffs. Vanessa walked behind, also in handcuffs. The 3 were screaming. Richard struggled. This is a mistake. Let me go. I am innocent. Vanessa was crying. We did nothing wrong. This is abuse. The lawyer said nothing. He just walked with his head down, defeated. They put them in a patrol car. The patrol car took off. They were gone, and I stayed there sitting in George's car watching them take my son away. My hands were trembling, my stomach burned, my throat closed up. Are you okay? Asked George. I did not respond. I could not. Arthur, breathe. I breathed. Once, twice, 3 times. Slowly the trembling calmed down. You did the right thing, said George. I nodded. I know, but knowing I did the right thing did not make it hurt less. That night I returned to the hotel, but I could not stay in the room. The space felt too small, too silent. I went out to walk again. This time I went toward the lakefront park, a place where I used to take Richard when he was a child. We sat on the benches by the lake. We ate ice cream. We watched the ducks swim. He asked me things. Dad, why is the sky blue? Dad, do ducks feel cold in the water? Dad, will you always be here? Always. That is what I promised him, that I was always going to be there for him. And I kept that promise. Until today. Today I was the one who sent him to jail. I sat on the same bench where we used to sit. The park was almost empty. Only some night joggers, some couples walking. The lake was still. The ducks slept on the shore. I took out my cell phone. There were several messages. One from George. I already spoke with the DA. Richard was detained at the central booking. Tomorrow they present him before the judge. The bail is going to be high. He probably cannot pay it. He is going to stay in custody until the trial. Another message. From an unknown number. I hope you are happy. You destroyed your own family. Vanessa. I deleted the message. Another one. Mr. Evans, I saw the news. If you need anything, I am here. Roger. I smiled sadly. Roger. The janitor who warned me. The man who helped me see the truth. Thank you, Roger. I appreciate it very much. I put the cell phone away. And I stayed there sitting, watching the water, thinking about everything that had happened, about how I had reached this point, at what moment my life became this. An hour later I got up. I walked back to the hotel. I went up to my room. I went to bed. And this time sleep did not come. I stayed awake all night, staring at the ceiling, thinking, remembering, regretting, but also feeling something strange. Relief. Because finally, after weeks of uncertainty, of pain, of betrayal, finally I knew the truth. Finally I had acted. Finally I had protected what was mine. And even though the price was high, even though I lost my son in the process, at least I recovered my dignity. The next morning George called me early. "The hearing is at 10. Do you want to be present?" I thought for a moment. "No. Are you sure?" "Yes. I do not want to see him." "Not yet." "Understood. I will be there. I will call you when it finishes." "Thank you, George." I spent the morning at the hotel, watching the news, drinking coffee, waiting. At noon, George called. "It is over." "What happened?" "The judge ordered pretrial detention. Richard is going to stay in the Metropolitan Detention Center until the trial. The bail was $500,000. Vanessa tried to pay it, but she does not have the money. The lawyer was also detained, and they issued an arrest warrant for Howard Stone. They are going to arrest him in the next few hours. How long will the trial last? Months, maybe a year. Depends on how long the processes drag out. And the company is still yours. The trust worked. All the documents Richard signed are void. Howard has no right over Evans Logistics. Everything returns to you." I breathed deep. "Thank you, George." "You do not have to thank me. You did the right thing, Arthur. The hard thing, but the right thing." I hung up. I sat on the edge of the bed, and for the first time in weeks I felt something resembling peace. It was not happiness. It was not joy. It was simply the absence of fear, the absence of uncertainty. I knew what was coming. I knew the next months were going to be difficult, that there would be trials, statements, press scandals. But I also knew I had done the right thing. I had protected what was mine. I had defended my legacy. And although I lost my son, at least I did not lose my dignity. 3 months after the arrest, I returned to my office. The same office on the 12th floor with a view of downtown. The same one where Richard betrayed me. But now it was different. I changed the locks. I removed the hidden camera. I rearranged the furniture. I hired a new manager to replace Richard. A 50-year-old man, experienced, loyal. Someone who understood that trust is earned with actions, not with words. Evans Logistics kept operating. The trucks kept rolling. The routes kept working. The employees kept working. Life continued. But I had changed. I was no longer the same man who pretended to go on vacation months ago. That man trusted too much. That man believed that blood was stronger than anything. That man was wrong. I learned something in these months. I learned that family is not defined by blood. It is defined by actions, by loyalty, by respect. And Richard lost all that the day he decided to forge my signature. The trial advanced slowly. As George had predicted, Richard's lawyers tried to drag it out as much as possible. Appeals, motions, legal technicalities. But the evidence was overwhelming. The recordings, the forged documents, the testimonies. Roger testified. The DA presented everything before the judge, and little by little Richard's options ran out. Vanessa tried to visit me twice. The first time she arrived at my house in the suburbs crying, she knocked on the door. My housekeeper, Mrs. Higgins, let me know. "Mr. Evans, Mrs. Vanessa is at the door. Tell her I am not here." "But Mr. Evans, she says she needs to speak with you." "I do not care." "Tell her I am not here." Mrs. Higgins went down and gave her the message. I heard Vanessa scream from upstairs. "I know you are there. Coward. You destroyed your own son." I closed my bedroom window. I had nothing to say to her. The second time she waited for me outside my office building. When I went out to the parking lot, she approached me. "Mr. Evans, please let's talk. We have nothing to talk about. Richard is your son, your only son. How can you do this to him?" I stopped. I looked her straight in the eyes. "I did not do anything to him. He did it to himself." "But you sent him to jail. He stole from me, forged my signature. He tried to take everything I built in 40 years. What did you expect me to do? Let him get away with it. He is your son. Not anymore." The words came out colder than I expected, but they were true. Vanessa stayed silent. Tears ran down her cheeks. "You are a terrible man. Maybe. But I am a man who protects what is his." I got into my truck and drove away. I never saw her again after that. 4 months after the arrest, the day of the verdict arrived. George called me early. "Today is the day, Arthur. The judge is going to give his sentence. How much do you think they will give him? With all the evidence, between 5 and 10 years. 5 and 10 years. My son, in prison, for 5 to 10 years. Are you going to go?" asked George. "No. Arthur, it is the verdict. You should be there." "I do not want to see him. It is okay. I understand." I spent the day in my office, working, reviewing contracts, speaking with clients, doing what I always did, keeping busy so as not to think. At 5 in the afternoon, George called. "The verdict is out." I breathed deep. "Tell me." 8 years, for fraud and forgery of documents. The lawyer received 6 years, and Howard Stone 7. 8 years. My son was going to spend 8 years in prison. And Vanessa, she reached a plea deal. She testified against Richard in exchange for a reduced sentence. 2 years in prison with the possibility of probation. She betrayed him, just like he betrayed me. How ironic. How did Richard take it? Badly. Very badly, he screamed. He blamed everyone. He blamed you. He blamed Vanessa. He blamed the judge, but in the end they took him away. I remained silent, processing. "Arthur, are you there?" "Yes." "Are you okay?" "Yes." Lie. I was not okay, but I was going to be. "Thank you for everything, George. That is what we are here for. If you need anything, call me." I hung up. I sat in my chair looking out the window. The sun was setting behind the buildings. The city lights were starting to turn on. And me here alone, feeling the weight of everything, but also feeling something else. Relief. Justice. Closure. I got up from the chair. I turned off the office lights. I locked the door, and I went down to the parking lot. I got into my truck and drove aimlessly. I did not want to go home yet. I did not want to be anywhere familiar, so I drove to the outskirts of Chicago, toward the highway that leads to the lake. I parked by the water. I got out of the truck. I walked to the shore. The water was calm. The sky was clear. The stars began to appear. I sat on a rock, and for the first time in months I let it all out. The tears, the pain, the sadness, everything I had been keeping inside. I cried, not like a defeated man, but like a man who had carried too much for too long, and finally could let go. I do not know how long I was there. Maybe an hour, maybe more. But when I finally got up, something had changed. The weight was still there, but it was lighter. I drove back home. When I arrived, Mrs. Higgins received me at the door. "Mr. Evans, have you had dinner?" "No, Mrs. Higgins, but I am not hungry. I am going to prepare something light for you." "You need to eat." I smiled. "Thank you." I went up to my room. I took off my suit. I put on comfortable clothes. I went down to the kitchen. Mrs. Higgins had prepared chicken soup. I sat at the table. I ate slowly. And for the first time in months, the taste of food was not bitter. 1 year after the verdict, I received a letter from the state penitentiary. From Richard. I kept it in my desk without opening it for a week. I did not want to read it. I did not want to know what he had to say. But curiosity won. One night alone in my office, I opened the envelope. The letter was handwritten with shaky handwriting. "Dad, I do not know if you are going to read this. I do not know if you care, but I need to write it. I have had a lot of time to think in here, a lot of time to reflect on what I did, on the decisions I took. And you are right. I did everything wrong. I betrayed you. I stole from you. I disrespected you. And the worst part is that I did it consciously. It was not a mistake. It was not an impulse. It was planned, calculated. And now I am paying the consequences. I am not writing to ask for forgiveness. I know I do not deserve it. I am not writing to ask you to get me out of here. I know you will not do it. I am writing because I need you to know something. It was worth it. Not the money, not the company, not the power. Your respect was worth it, and I lost it due to my own stupidity. I learned something in here, Dad. I learned that respect is not inherited. It is earned, and I never earned it. I only expected it. I expected that because I was your son, everything belonged to me. But it does not work like that, and now I understand. Late, very late, but I understand. I do not expect you to forgive me. I do not expect you to speak to me again. I expect nothing. I just want you to know that despite everything, I respect you, more than I ever respected you when I was outside. Take care, Dad. Richard. I folded the letter. I put it in my desk drawer. And I did not answer. Maybe someday I would, maybe not. But for now, I had nothing to say. Actions speak louder than words, and his actions said everything. Today, 2 years after all this, I am still at the head of Evans Logistics. The company grew. We opened new routes. We hired more staff. We bought more trucks. Everything Richard tried to destroy, I rebuilt, stronger than before. I still live in my house in the suburbs. I still work from my office on the 12th floor. I am still the same man, but different, wiser, more careful, more aware that trust is not given away. It is earned, and it is lost easily. Sometimes at night I think about Richard. I wonder how he is doing in prison. If he really learned something, or if he only wrote that letter to manipulate me one more time. I do not know, and maybe I will never know. But what I do know is this: I did the right thing. I protected what was mine. I defended my dignity, and even though the price was high, it was worth it. Because in this world, a man who does not defend what is his is not a man. He is a victim, and I refuse to be a victim. I learned that respect is not begged for, it is commanded. That family is not defined by blood, it is defined by loyalty, and that sometimes the hardest decision is the right one. If you are listening to this and you are going through something similar, I tell you something. Do not be afraid to defend what is yours. Do not be afraid to set boundaries, even if it is with your own family, because in the end, the only thing you really have is your dignity, and that no one can take away from you, unless you allow them to. I did not allow it, and you should not either. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it serves you well, and remember, respect is earned, dignity is defended, and betrayal is paid for. Always. Thank you for joining me in this story. If it made you reflect, leave me a comment. I would like to know what you would have done in my place. And if you know someone who is going through something similar, share this story. Maybe it will help them make the right decision. See you in the next story. Take care. And take care of what is yours.